about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Willinger, filling in for Joe Cristiano, and welcome to Liberty Talk Radio, Americans' libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio right here in the USA, around the world. It's our pleasure to introduce our guest today. My pleasure. Janet Phelan is our guest. Janet is an investigative journalist whose articles have appeared in regional and national publications. In 2004, she jumped ship and now exclusively writes for independent media. In addition to being a poet, she published a groundbreaking expose, Exile, in May of 2014, which is available at thebookpatch.com. Formerly a talk show host herself with KSKQ, Republic Broadcasting Network, Janet maintains a vigorous schedule, guesting on radio shows across America and Canada. She currently resides in Latin America. And Janet, welcome to Liberty Talk Radio today. How are you?
Thank you. It's such a pleasure, Bob. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. Janet, we were talking a little bit about before the show started about the bioweapons topic that you want to delve in today. Why don't you just get right started, if you will, please?
Right. Thank you. I think it's good to sort of pick up the trail of the biological weapons issue in September of 2001. Which is, as we all know, when the Twin Towers came down and also the anthrax mailings took place.
Yes.
And the anthrax letters were put in the mail approximately a week after the attack on the World Trade Center. Now, there is a specific reason, it appears, that these two events were twinned. As we know, following the horrific events of September of 2001, the U.S. Congress swung into action and passed the USA Patriot Act, which essentially turned us into a top-heavy surveillance state. But the USA Patriot Act did something else, which is very underreported, because embedded in the Patriot Act, in a section entitled The Expansion of the Biological Weapons Statute, which is Section 817 of the U.S. Patriot Act, the U.S. essentially gave itself immunity from violating its own biological weapons laws. Now, interested readers can Google 817, and you scroll down to the bottom. There is a final caveat which states, the prohibitions contained in this section shall not apply to any duly authorized U.S. governmental activity.
Okay, Janet, that's powerful what you just said. It's very powerful, and I'm glad you pointed it out. So in the Patriot Act, in Section 817, there's a section there, 817 in the Patriot Act, and all of our listeners can Google that and see that for themselves. And you're saying that the government has given themselves immunity to go ahead, to violate our own bioweapon statutes that would protect the public. They can violate that. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Yes, that's right. Now, that's an interesting sort to sneak in there. And there are actually, I want to briefly state, there are implications, because it's biological weapons convention, which hundreds of countries have found.
Okay. Let me ask you, can you repeat that again? Because our Skype and our audio was a little rough, and I'm not sure that everyone, if you heard what I heard, you didn't really make it out. It was garbled a little bit, and this is very important information. Could you please say that again, please?
Yes. The United States of America to an international convention treaty called the Biological Weapons Convention. And by changing the domestic legislation in the manner that the U.S. did, the U.S. is essentially in violation of the treaty. But further than that, because the United States, this Biological Weapons Convention is a very strange sort of critter. It is the only arms treaty, international arms treaty, verification protocol. There's no way to check to see if member states are obeying the convention, and there's no real mechanism through the Biological Weapons Convention, to engage nations and claim that a party
So there's really no quality control.
I'm having some trouble on my screen here.
I know.
With me?
We're going to hang up the video call, and I'm going to call it back.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Okay, our engineer Preston, he just said we're going to disengage our video and re-engage our audio. Well, we're in the day of modern technology, and unfortunately, when it doesn't go right, it doesn't go right. But when it works well, it's beautiful. I work in an office. I'm a realtor full-time, and I'm guesting for Joe, who's vacationing with his lovely wife, Erin, and we just wish them well, and we hope they're enjoying their time away and come back refreshed. But in my office, a lot of times, the computer, the Wi-Fi is not hooking up to the Wi-Fi in the copier, and you print something, and you go over to the printer, and the paper comes out. There's nothing on the paper, and so, and you're rushed. You're trying to get something else, get to an appointment. So when it, I'm sure we've all dealt with that. And so when it works, it's great. And then when we have glitches, it's not so great. Now, and we got this new thing. Well, it's not brand new, but for us in our market, we're going to dot loop, which is electronic signatures. And so that adds even a whole nother thing, because we got to get up to speed, and our buyers and sellers have to get up to speed. So how are we doing over there, Preston?
Is she there?
No, Janet, can you hear me all right?
I certainly can.
Okay, you're back. All right, let's pick this up, because you were talking about the U.S. is actually in violation of the international treaty on bioweapons, is what I understand.
Yes, and it actually, by passing this piece of legislation, the U.S. essentially signed off, de facto signed off of the Biological Weapons Convention, because they're stating we're not going to obey biological weapons laws. We're going to do what we want. That's what that caveat means. But it goes further than that, because as I was saying during, I think, our problems with the connection, the Biological Weapons Convention has no verification protocol. It's the only arms treaty, international arms treaty, that has no way to verify to see if member states are actually in compliance or not. However, it does have a particular sort of mechanism called confidence building measures. And these confidence building measures mandate, in a politically binding agreement, that member countries report to the convention at large certain kinds of activities. One of these activities is any change in domestic legislation having to do with biological weapons. And the fact is, the U.S. forgot. This is what Chris Parks of the State Department told me. We forgot to report to the Biological Weapons Convention that we changed our legislation.
Huh.
So they're actually kind of hiding this 817, which is, of course, in plain view. We can all go and Google it and see it. Now, I When I got onto this biological weapons story, I actually traveled to Geneva in December of 2011, and I registered as an NGO, and I do have an NGO affiliation, and I registered in such a manner in order to be able to make a public presentation at the Biological Weapons Convention in Geneva, Switzerland, which I did in December of 2011. And during the 3-week-long convention, the United States had several sort of side events where they made presentations. And at one of these side events, a Department of Homeland Security official named Dr. Daniel Gerstein made a PowerPoint presentation of this wonderful biological weapons legislation that the United States has. And he put up on the screen the old biological weapons statute, not 817, which was the amendment, which contains that very strange caveat where the U.S. basically gives itself permission to violate its own biological weapons laws. So when Chris Park told me that they just forgot to report this, I challenge that because I believe there is a studied deception going on concerning 817. And when Dr. Daniel Gerstein puts up on the screen at the United Nations a now defunct piece of legislation which does not contain the indications that the U.S. has intention now to violate its own biological weapons laws, I think that what we've got here now is propaganda.
Sounds like he was covering up what you were mentioning here about 817. He didn't bring it to light, and he was using the old piece of legislation and didn't showcase or talk about the amendment 817. Is that correct? I mean, and that
is correct.
Okay,
yes. And
817 was was in the Patriot Act passed in 2001, and your convention was 2011, so it was 10 years old. So he certainly, being an expert, had 10 years to learn about it.
I would think so. I would think so. So let's go on to the next piece of legislation that appears to be problematic, and then we're going to get into what the serious business of talking about delivery systems and really serious kind of stuff. So following the passage of the USA Patriot Act in 2002, there was another piece of legislation called the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act. And the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act makes it a federal crime for government officials to reveal information about protected infrastructure. And that, my friends, also includes water. Now, why are we concerned about water? What I have stumbled upon here and what I've written a series of articles about is changes in the water systems in the United States, which appear to be countrywide, which allow city water to basically function as a potential chemical or biological weapons delivery system.
Wow, that's quite a mouthful. So the infrastructure that we use every day to shower, to drink, to cook, could be it's protected, so it can't be discussed really, I guess, or protected. But this infrastructure that we're placing our trust in government to deliver this to us and keep it up, and we're paying our taxes and being good citizens, this could be essentially the barrel of a gun that would deliver a lethal weapon to anyone. It sounds like.
Yes. Now, I want to say that I know that this is going to sound like science fiction. So I really want to urge the listening audience to check out a couple of articles in which I have archived and attached blueprints of water systems in different areas, some in Los Angeles, some in Spokane, Washington. And so in pursuit of this story, and I want to preface this by saying I was tipped off. I wasn't sitting around scratching my head saying, "Gee, I wonder if water is going to be a problem." No, I was totally tipped off to this. Now, my first reaction, of course, was also this is science fiction, but I would say that the tipper was very persuasive. So I knew that in order to adequately report this, I was going to have to get documentation. My first step in getting documentation was City Hall in Santa Monica, California. At that point in time, I was a columnist with the Santa Monica Daily Press. And I went over to City Hall to make a request for water records. And within, which by the way, I never got. Within 6 hours, I got a frantic phone call from the editor of the Santa Monica Daily Press, Carolyn Zachariason, in which she basically read me the riot act. I did not have her permission to ask these questions. I was endangering her position as editor of the Santa Monica Daily Press by even asking, making a Public Records Act request and asking for documentation. And I was not to do that. And it was, well, to make a long story short, I went over to the office to talk with Carolyn. I was denied access to Carolyn. And I thought this over very seriously and tendered my resignation. I had already gotten enough input to know that this was a very serious story and I was not going to be censored. So, attached to an article called "Water is a Weapon" is a number of documents having to do with Public Records Act requests I made, trying to get water system records. Particularly at one point, I began to focus in on blueprints. And the blueprints that I got, by the way, I want to kind of make this real clear. The blueprints that I got under stealth. I did not receive from my Public Records Act requests bona fide blueprints. In fact, in the matter of the city of Los Angeles, and this letter is attached to Water as a Weapon, and you can find it online, the city of Los Angeles told me that they would be happy to provide me redacted blueprints. So I'd have to wait a few weeks because at taxpayers' expense, the city of Los Angeles was going to construct entirely new blueprints for me.
Oh.
Now, this is an evidence in an attachment on a city letterhead. So, see, when you're redacting blueprints, you can't actually put a black line through something, because then you'll know that that something you're looking for is actually there. So, unknown to the City of Los Angeles Water Department, I had already obtained bona fide blueprints for the areas I was requesting. And this is how I did this. I started hanging around the streets, figuring out where crews were doing water work. And I'd come up to the crew and start chatting them up. A couple times the foreman asked me out for a drink, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'll go out for a drink with you. I'd love to go out to. I'd love to.
Drink of water."
Yeah, but I'd love to see those blueprints. Well, I'm so fascinated by your work. Can I see your blueprints? And he'd take them out, and I'd pull out my camera, take a few pictures, and while he began to yelp in dismay, I'd take off like greased lightning. Okay, so the blueprints that I got completely verified my suspicions of how this system would have to be constructed in order to provide a chemical biological weapons delivery system. Now, this system entails, it mandates 2 lines, because what we've got here is a targeting system, a selective targeting system. When it is deployed, and I believe it will be deployed in the future unless we can run the kind of interference that we're trying to run, like on your show today, okay?
Right. And when you say future, what would trigger a deployment of this biological weapon system in the water lines? What kind of event? What would be the reason? What would be the trigger point? Or, are you talking about in 5 years, 10 years, and 6 months?
Well, that's a very good question. That's a very important question. I wish I knew.
Okay.
But what we have here is a system that can selectively deliver whatever is in the second line, because we have a double line water system, two parallel lines running down the street of hometown America. And it is this second line that was redacted in all the blueprints given me by the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. So we have a double line system. We'll say one line has water, right? I mean, that's normal enough. What's in the second line? And why is it that this second line, whatever is in it, is being withheld by remote controlled valves? And this is exactly what I discovered when I was able to, get these stealth blueprints that I was able to get, not through my Public Records Act requests, but through, rather dedicated sort of hanging around street corners and talking to city crews.
Using your street reporter journalistic wiles that you've learned, you honed your skills. Well, let me ask you this. Okay, if there's two lines, when there's two lines in there, why not just use one line? Is that because it's selective? If you were to use one line, then you'd poison everybody, and we don't.
That's right.
So okay, now and so the poison. It could be any kind of bioweapon. I mean, you drink it and you die instantly, or 3 days later you die of a horrible, painful death of diarrhea, dysentery, whatever sort of disease you'd get. Is it going to look like it was just, it wasn't the water? Obviously, do you think they'll put something in there that we would just think it was in the air, or just a plague, or You're
asking very good questions, and I think that what we're going to see is a pandemic event. Now, I want to go back again to the events of 2001, the anthrax attacks, because more happened as a result of these anthrax attacks than changes in the legislation. What also took place is that the U.S. launched a huge, quote-unquote, biodefense program. They wanted to make sure that nothing, like the anthrax attacks, ever happened again. And to date, the United States government has pumped over $70 billion into calling biodefense. Now, I want to briefly mention something that was in the news about a month ago, I believe still in the news, where the Pentagon, quote unquote, accidentally mailed live anthrax through FedEx to over 68 labs worldwide. Okay? Now, that story in itself raises a lot of questions. Why is the U.S. government mailing anthrax all over the world?
Accidentally.
Accidentally, right. And what are all these labs doing with live anthrax? I mean, what's really going on with this? And there is a now defunct group called the Sunshine Project, which was attempting to really analyze what was happening with this alleged biodefense program. And the Sunshine Project came to the conclusion that there was simply there were no controls. There was no way to know what kind of research the labs were doing. There was no nobody was watching the store. So when the labs say they're doing countermeasures, they're doing defensive research, actually you don't need live anthrax to do that defensive research. You can do it with dead anthrax, right? Okay, I've learned this along the way. So we have what is called a defensive program, which may very well be an offense and offensive program. Now, unlike other weapons systems, in biodefense, you actually need to have the weapon on hand. As we saw with the U.S. government mailing out live anthrax, dead anthrax, whatever they were mailing out, right? Labs that are doing research, let's say, to develop anthrax vaccines, anthrax countermeasures, they're going to need to have some kind of anthrax on hand in order to do the research to protect against it. So what we saw after 9/11 was a huge proliferation of these, they call them BSLs, biosafety labs. They are ranked from 1 to 4. 4 is where they're doing research with agents for which there's no known cure. It's the most serious containment situation possible. Level 3s, they're doing research with slightly less volatile substances, and all the way down to 1s, which are fairly routine. Now, following the event of September 11th, we saw such proliferation. There's now over 1,400 labs registered with the CDC in the United States of America doing level 3 research. Over 1,400 labs.
Over 1,400.
It's like Starbucks, right? You got one on your corner, would you ever know?
Well, that brings, if you do the math, okay, so if there were 1,500, there'd be, 30 a state, on an average, and I'm sure it's not proportionate like that. So, you're probably talking about 28 a state, if it was split up equally, but I'm sure it's not. These labs registered with the CDC doing this research. I imagine they're at universities and hospitals and things like that.
Well, some of them are. A lot of them are on military bases.
Military bases, okay.
Military bases. Actually, I have a contact who had worked with military and was involved in seeing the kind of research that they did at Dugway and some of the other military bases, and he is absolutely firmly declaring that we've got an offensive weapons program going on. I'm very grateful to this gentleman, by the way. Most people seem to be acting like this story is like, see no evil, speak no evil.
Right.
So when I have someone coming forward saying, look, they are doing offensive research at Dugway Proving Grounds, then, this is enormously valuable information.
It is. And Janet, we want to just hold right there, hold that thought. We want to come back to you after our break. My name is Bob Willinger, and I'm sitting in for Joseph Cristiano. This is Liberty Talk Radio, and we're going to be right back after this.
You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Political talk derived from a historical perspective. Not always palatable, but good food for thought. Pure libertarian talk with host Joe Cristiano. LibertyTalkRadio.com.
Express Test is your go-to company for on-site occupational health testing services. That's right, we said on-site. That means we will meet you at your facility for a free health and occupational safety consultation. Express Test specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Ranch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires. For a free consultation, call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthyWillDone.com.
Steve Harden of the Harden Insurance Agency has over 30 years of experience designing family insurance protection, including retirement planning. Call 918-488-0024 or go to hardenagency.com and request a free in-depth estate and retirement evaluation. We look forward to earning your trust and helping you meet your life goals.
This isn't your typical talk radio show. This is Liberty. Liberty Talk Radio.
And welcome back to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm guest host Bob Willinger, guesting for Joe Cristiano, who's on vacation with his lovely wife, Erin, and we just wish them well and a lot of rest, and we look forward to them coming back. Today I have a very interesting guest with really some mind-blowing information that we're putting out there. My guest today is Janet Phelan, an investigative journalist whose articles have appeared in Los Angeles Times, San Bernardino County Sentinel, the Santa Monica Daily Press. She's an author, a poet, and we were just talking about a bioweapons delivery system in the water lines all across the country, and also talking about anthrax and some other issues. And Janet, in this is the second part of the show, I want you to kind of recap and bring us back up to speed and tell us some more.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to go into a little more about the system, because once again, this sounds like that movie Brazil. This sounds like V for Vendetta. Actually, interestingly enough, in the movie V for Vendetta, the pre-existing situation that resulted in this horrific Orwellian surveillance state was an attack through the water system.
Really?
Yeah, you can go and watch the movie again. It's mentioned very briefly. I had already published my first article on this when I went to see that movie. And I sat there in my seat with actually chills going down my spine. Now, I want to talk specifically about the system because I do know that it does stretch credibility. So first of all, we've got double water lines, which is necessary because as psychopathic as our leaders may be, I don't think they really want to kill themselves off. Okay, so there's going to be selectivity, which is going to allow certain people, certain maybe types of people, to suffer this coming pandemic, and certain people will remain unscathed. So we have two parallel water lines running down Main Street America, which are connected by service lines going into each and every house, right? So not one water line, but two. Let's call the second line, let's call it the vodka line, okay? Let's say they've got pure vodka running down that second line. So let's say they want to get you drunk, okay? Mm-hmm. So they can open up the remote control valve that is inhibiting whatever is in that vodka line, we'll call it the vodka line, is inhibiting the vodka from going into your house. They open it up, and you get up in the morning, you want to have like a big glass of water, and you're dead drunk. Now, remote control valves are very important to this system because upon the launching of what I do believe is going to be this huge pandemic, which is going to change the face of America, I do believe, they're not going to want to have trucks running down the street everywhere in America, digging it up and turning valves. I think that would be like too obvious, don't you? So they'd have to be remote controlled. So after I discovered that there were double water lines and that the governments, the city and county governments that I approached about this were lying about this and withholding records and redacting blueprints and giving me false information. After I discovered this, I went ahead to try to research the valves. And lo and behold, I have pictures of these valves now that are attached again to the article Water is a Weapon. The picture was taken at the Santa Monica City Yard. I just strolled in one day with my camera, saw the valves with the chalked on numbers. You can see the chalked on numbers on, especially if you kind of blow up the picture of the valves in Santa Monica. Now, those chalked on numbers are RFID addresses. Every valve has a different number. Now, how does this work? How do remote control valves work? There is also attached to the article Water is a Weapon a diagram from a website called ROM Communications. That's ROM Communications. And this diagram shows in exquisite simplicity how a command that is initiated off, let's say, a laptop, it goes into the internet, it goes up to the satellites, and on the left-hand side of the diagram, it shows what can be impacted by this signal that comes off the internet. And lo and behold, you've got a picture of many things, including exactly the kind of water valve that I photographed at the city yard in Santa Monica with the chalked on RFID address.
Wow, that's something else, the RFID. So who would be pushing the button? Who would if you work at the water department, who would know about this? I mean, this is stealth information, like you said. They know, we talked about it's a violation to, discuss infrastructure, that sort of thing. But if I had a job at the water department, am I going to know about this? Or I'm going to just be segmented out?
Yeah. You get high, you have to be kind of high up the food chain to know about this. Certainly when I got the real blueprints, the photos of the real blueprints from the guys on the street who were doing the work, they had no idea. The foreman had no idea. But you get up the food chain into the engineering department, then you start running into people who know. Now, I also had made a records request in Medford, Oregon. And Medford actually has a whole different arrangement. They will make the plats, which are like essentially blueprints, available free of charge to the public. You just go into the office and click a button and copy off the plat for your neighborhood. Complete transparency, right? Except they're already redacted. And once again, I used my sort of stealth backdoor to get copies of real blueprints in Medford, Oregon. So I compared them to the plats, same problem. They have redacted the parallel second line, the vodka line, okay? So I had a meeting with one of their chief engineers and also with their public affairs director. The information about this particular meeting is recorded in an article entitled Homeward Bound. And this particular article also has very good blueprints. These were obtained in Spokane, Washington. They are crystal clear. There were some questions about some of the blueprints attached to water as a weapon because my camera was a little fuzzy. You can see double lines. What does it all mean? But bound, you've got the water lines colored blue. So there's no question about the fact that this system is extant in Spokane, Washington. So here I am in Medford. I'm meeting with the public affairs director and also a chief engineer who are named in the article Homeward Bound. And they're insisting to me that their plats are accurate. And I'm saying, look, I've got these photos that show that your plats aren't, and they're basically, it became a rather desperate endeavor on their part because they're trying to convince me that what I have, and I'm putting right on the table in front of them, it doesn't exist. I mean, it was kind of like that part of 1984 where the thought police is telling Winston Smith, look, I'm holding up 2 fingers, right? And he's holding up 5. He says, I'm holding up 2 fingers, and you're going to tell me this is 2 fingers, even though he's obviously holding up 5, right? It's the same sort of mind craziness. So at that point, I asked the public affairs director and also this chief engineer, I said, is what you're saying to me today, is it governed by that insertion in the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act that says you can go to prison for talking about water structures? And they stood up and said this conversation is over, and they walked out of the room.
Wow.
So let's talk about pandemics, okay? We're seeing the emergence of a lot of peculiar sort of bugs, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, it seems like almost a week doesn't go by that we've got we've got Ebola here, we've got MERS here, we've got this, that, everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, The Guardian, during this last Ebola crisis, The Guardian declared that the big one is coming. It's not Ebola, but the big one is coming. Now, I found that to be rather alarming. It seemed to me that whoever constructed that headline knew something that us mere mortals don't, that the big one is coming. But it wasn't Ebola, because there was a lot of concern that, people with Ebola were being taken into the U.S. and what was going on with this.
Right.
Now, there are others who are also saying the big one is coming. These are members of government. Dr. Daniel Gerstein made this prediction also at the United Nations. He said the big one was coming possibly by the end of 2013. So have former Senators Graham and Talent, who are now with the Weapons of Mass Destruction Center in Washington, D.C. The big one is coming. The big one is coming. It's coming very soon. 2013 seemed to be a date that a number of these prognosticators were fixed on.
Right.
And I think there was a reason for that. And I wrote an article entitled, Is 2013 the real 2012? I think that's the title of it. It was a couple years ago, and it was published on Activist Post. And I went into why I thought 2013 was being fixed on as this date. Now, my understanding of the global chessboard, and there is a global chess game going on now, these invasions into the Middle East, coupled with all the deprivation of civil rights in America, all of this is engineered. And it's my understanding that there are some events that have to take place before this is deployed on a mass scale. And one of these is the invasion of Syria.
The invasion of Syria. Well, Janet, I'm going to have to stop you right there, and I don't really want to stop you right there, but the clock is ticking away. And you're a very fascinating and interesting woman, I must say, and you're investigative journalist, what you've uncovered. And I sure hope that Joe brings you back. So there's another part to this, because I know you could continue on and talking, but I really would like to give you the last couple of minutes here on the program to mention some books, resources, and links where our audience of Liberty Talk Radio, they can go to and follow up on what you said. I hope that what you've talked about has spurred their interest and that they will follow up. So tell us, promote yourself a little bit, and tell us where can our audience follow up on what you've told us so far.
Yeah, my personal website is janetphelan.com. Phelan is spelled P as in poison, Helan, janetphelan.com. I currently work for New Eastern Outlook, which is an dual-language electronic journal published out of Moscow, Russia. And I also have a book out, published last year, entitled Exile, that goes into my leaving the country, the circumstances under which I was compelled to leave the U.S. It also talks a great deal about this water stuff and other research that I have done.
So is the book Exile, is that available on Amazon, or how would they get that?
Right now, it's only available on thebookpatch.com.
Okay.
So you can order it through there. And New Eastern Outlook is available online, and it's actually a very interesting perspective. A lot of the writers are Russians. A number of them are United States citizens. There are some Czechoslovakian people writing for the journal as well. So you really get an international perspective.
And that's called the neweasternoutlook.com?
It's actually, that's not, just Google New Eastern Outlook and you'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if someone if someone had some information, folks, it's standing up and having the courage. That's what we need. We need men and women of courage, like Janet right here. We're listening to a very courageous woman, and the people that have tipped her off. If you can do that anonymously, or you can do that and just give some more tips for more pieces of the puzzle to be put together for investigative journalists like Janet, who has the courage, or others, how would they contact you if they had something they wanted get to you, share with you? You have an email address or?
Yep, I can be contacted through my website. There's an email Janet button, and you can contact me through there. And there are people who do email me anonymously through my website. So I would encourage anyone who wants to make contact to do so in that manner.
Well, Janet, we have about 1 minute left, and again, I really appreciate you coming on the program today, and we just wish you peace and safety and grace. You're coming your way, and thank you for your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. All right, we'd like to wrap up the program today. We want to thank our sponsors for their financial support, and thank you for listening in. And you can further the course of liberty by recommending, referring this program to your friends, and let us hear from you. We'd like to hear back from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. That's comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, folks, you are either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you are striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there's no middle ground. Until next time, this is Bob Willinger filling in for Joe Cristiano. Stay well, stay tuned.